Did you know something quite remarkable? For over 200 years, Japan was nearly invisible. Only a few Dutch traders saw a tiny part of it. They were confined to a small man-made island called Dejima. This was in the port of Nagasaki. This extreme isolation was a deliberate choice. It shaped Japan profoundly. It also set the stage for a truly dramatic encounter, one that would change its destiny forever. Japan's policy of isolation was called sakoku, meaning chained country. It began in the early 1600s, enforced by the Tokugawa shogunate. They feared foreign influence, especially Christianity. They had seen other nations in Asia colonized by European powers. The shoguns wanted to prevent this, aiming for stability and control within Japan. Sakoku was their shield. Life under sakoku was very controlled. Information from the outside world was limited. Most Japanese people knew little of global events. Foreign books were banned, with some exceptions. Travel abroad was forbidden for Japanese citizens. Those who left could not return. Society was highly structured. Everyone knew their place. This order was maintained for generations. But the world outside was not standing still. The Industrial Revolution was transforming Western nations. Their economies grew powerful, seeking new markets and resources. Japan, a land of mystery and rumored wealth, began to attract their attention. The year was 1853. Commodore Matthew C. Perry arrived, an officer in the United States Navy. He carried a mission from President Millard Fillmore to open Japan to trade and secure protection for American sailors. Perry was determined and prepared to use force if necessary. On July 8th, 4 American warships sailed into Edo Bay, now Tokyo Bay. 2 of them were powerful steam frigates, moving without sails and belching black smoke. The sight was astonishing and unsettling for those on shore. These ships represented a new kind of power. The Japanese called these vessels kurofun, meaning black ships. Their dark hulls and size dwarfed Japanese coastal defense boats. The technology on display was far beyond anything Japan possessed. Cannons were visible on their decks. The black ships symbolized the outside world, now knocking forcefully on Japan's closed door. The initial Japanese response was confusion and fear. Officials tried to make the Americans leave, sending small boats to tell Perry to go to Nagasaki, the only port for limited foreign contact. Perry flatly refused, insisting he would not leave. He had a letter for the emperor and would deliver it near Edo, the shogun's capital. Commodore Perry had a clear strategy. He was there to make a demand, carrying an official letter from President Fillmore. Perry insisted it must be received by high-ranking Japanese officials. He would not deal with intermediaries, aiming to speak directly to those in power. This was a deliberate tactic to show American seriousness. Perry refused to sail to Nagasaki or meet with low-ranking officials. His ships remained anchored in Edo Bay, a constant reminder of the message they carried. This approach has often been called gunboat diplomacy. The American warships were heavily armed, their cannons a silent but potent threat. The message was clear: open your country to us or face serious consequences. Perry aimed to be firm, not aggressive initially. He displayed the firepower of his ships but avoided starting an immediate conflict. He spoke of friendship and trade benefits. Perry was patient, yet unyielding. He understood the shock his arrival caused, and knew the Japanese needed time. He used demonstrations of his ship's technology, firing blank cannon shots to show their power without causing harm. He offered gifts to the Japanese, including a miniature steam train to impress them and show what America had to offer. The Tokugawa shogunate faced an immense problem. Their military power was severely outdated. For centuries they had focused on internal control, not keeping pace with global military advancements. They had samurai warriors with swords and spears and some old cannons. They could not match Perry's steam-powered warships and modern weaponry. Within the shogunate, a fierce debate began. Some argued strongly for resistance, believing Japan should maintain sakoku and expel the foreigners. They felt honor and tradition demanded it. Others recognized the technological gap and understood that resisting Perry's fleet could lead to disaster. They argued for a more pragmatic approach, suggesting compromise. Perhaps opening the country a little was better than total destruction. The shogun himself, Tokugawa Ieyasu, was ill, and died shortly after Perry's first visit. His successor, Tokugawa Ieyasu, was young and perhaps less decisive. The decision fell on the shoulders of his council of elders. The pressure was enormous. Opening the country would end centuries of tradition and could lead to internal unrest. Refusing could lead to foreign attack. It was a choice with no easy answers. Japan stood at a critical crossroads. Commodore Perry successfully delivered President Fillmore's letter. He made America's demands very clear. The United States wanted trade relations and humane treatment for shipwrecked American sailors. It also wanted the right to obtain coal and supplies in Japan. These were significant requests, challenging the very foundations of Sakoku. The Japanese officials listened intently, understanding the gravity of the moment. Perry did not demand an immediate final answer. He knew this was a monumental decision for Japan. He announced that he would leave but would return the following spring, expecting a favorable reply. This gave the Japanese government time to consider and acted as an ultimatum. The clock was now ticking. The shogunate held many councils and debates, even soliciting opinions from the feudal lords, or daimyo. Some lords still urged defiance, while others counseled acceptance of Perry's terms. The country was divided. The threat of Perry's return loomed large. Perry's squadron then sailed away from Edo Bay, leaving behind a profound and lasting impression. The image of the black ships was seared into Japanese minds. Their power was undeniable and their purpose was now known. The temporary departure did not bring relief. Instead, it brought a period of intense anxiety and fervent discussion across the land. Japan had a few months to decide its future. The countdown to Perry's return had truly begun. True to his word, Commodore Perry returned to Japan in February 1854. This time, his show of force was even greater, with a larger squadron of 8 powerful American warships. Perry meant business and was not going to accept further delays. He was there for an answer and expected that answer to be yes. The Japanese officials had spent months in deliberation, weighing their limited options. The arguments for avoiding war were strong, recognizing the technological superiority of the West. They chose the path of diplomacy, deciding to negotiate with Perry and make concessions. On March 31, 1854, the agreement was signed at Kanagawa, a town near Edo. The document was formally called the Convention of Kanagawa, commonly known as the Treaty of Kanagawa. This treaty was a landmark achievement for Perry and a turning point for Japan. The signing ceremony was formal, involving exchanges of gifts and courtesies, but the underlying tension was palpable. The Treaty of Kanagawa had specific terms. It opened 2 Japanese ports to American ships, Shimoda and Hakodate. These ports were not major trading centers, but they provided access. The treaty guaranteed good treatment for shipwrecked American sailors. It also allowed the United States to appoint a consul who would reside in Shimoda. While limited, these terms began to pry open Japan's closed doors. The isolation was ending. The Treaty of Kanagawa was a modest agreement. It did not immediately establish full trade relations. However, its significance was immense. It marked the end of the Sakoku policy. Over 200 years of isolation were ending. The door had been pushed open. Soon other Western powers arrived. Great Britain, Russia, the Netherlands, and France wanted similar treaties. The shogunate, weakened, granted them. These treaties opened more ports and established diplomatic relations. Japan was drawn into the global network. Many agreements favored Western powers. They included extraterritoriality and low import tariffs. These terms caused resentment among Japanese. The shogunate's authority suffered greatly. Signing these treaties was seen as a sign of weakness. Many samurai and intellectuals felt humiliated. Resentment against foreign influence grew. The country was now open. The question was, how would it adapt? Change was no longer a choice, it was a necessity. The arrival of Commodore Perry created deep turmoil. Japan's society was shaken. The shogunate's inability to repel the foreigners exposed its declining power. It fueled a growing movement of discontent. Many samurai, particularly from Satsuma and Choshu, were dissatisfied. They rallied with court nobles under the slogan, Sono Joy, meaning revere the emperor, expel the barbarians. They believed the shogun had usurped the emperor's authority. In 1868, the Tokugawa shogunate was overthrown and power was restored to Emperor Meiji. This event, known as the Meiji Restoration, marked the beginning of Japan's revolutionary transformation. The Meiji government launched rapid modernization. Japan sent missions abroad. Students and officials traveled to Europe and the United States. They studied Western government systems and industrial technology. They observed military methods and naval power. The Japanese proved to be eager and effective learners. They adapted Western ideas to fit their own culture. Feudalism was abolished. The samurai class lost its special privileges. A modern army and navy were established. Industrialization was heavily promoted by the state. Railways and telegraph lines spread across the country. A national education system was created. Japan was remaking itself. By the late 19th century, the results were clear. Japan was changing from a feudal society into a modern industrial state. It successfully renegotiated the unequal treaties. It then began to assert its own influence in Asia. In 1894, Japan defeated China in the First Sino-Japanese War. This victory shocked the world, signaling Japan's emergence as a new power. By 1900, Japan was a recognized world power. The arrival of Commodore Perry's black ships in 1853 had been the catalyst. Within a few decades, Japan had transformed into a major player on the world stage.